Behold, my very first 3D print ever! Considering I've never touched a 3D printer and have barely touched a 3D modeling software, I cannot believe how good this first print turned out. Now, I had a bit of a head start making this. Like, I stole the hands and feet from the Dummy 13 model, along with the baseball and socket joints. This figure was meant to mimic the skeleton I used to create these figures. And since I was really happy with how it turned out, I was ready to move on to Mark II. Alright, this is only the second model and it's already looking really good. This uses basically the same skeleton but with slightly beefed up joints and a more detailed torso. I also designed my own feet as opposed to using the Dummy 13 ones. There is one change I made to the base frame and that's this joint right here. With the Mark I, the sockets pointed upwards. But because of this, the arms couldn't really come all the way up next to the body. So I put the socket on its side, which immediately fixed the issue. Not only did this change improve the articulation, but it also made the joints look cleaner by hiding the ball joint. Now that I was really happy with the base design, I started to clean the model up. Which brings us to Mark III. Now there is one major design change with this figure. With the Mark II, I was not happy that the shoulders could not come up very high. So with this figure, I angled the shoulder socket slightly upwards. This made the arm articulation feel a lot better. But I really did not like the way the torso looked. Because these sockets are so open, this figure has an insane range of motion. But that comes with the trade-off of these joints looking super exposed and not very natural. So, my goal is to find the right balance between looking good and maintaining a wide range of articulation. So since I liked the way that the Mark II torso looked, I decided to put that on this figure while maintaining the updated shoulder design. Which was way more difficult than I thought it would be. But now we're getting somewhere. I finally reached a torso design that I was really happy with. So now I was ready to start adding detail to the limbs. Okay, this was the first time that I tried to make the limbs look more natural. I was a little nervous about this part because I was still very new to 3D modeling. And up until this point, I've been working with pretty basic shapes. But I managed to come to a more natural design that I was pretty happy with only minor non-manifold and intersecting geometry issues. I also added more detail to the feet. One thing that was really bothering me was how his limbs were kind of misaligned. I also didn't like how this rounded hip piece contrasted with the rest of the figure. Both problems that I solved with this figure. While it looks virtually the same, there's one pretty major change that dramatically improved the articulation and the look. And that was the realization that I could actually move the ball to the top of the upper arm leg as opposed to having it in the center. This allowed the joints to bend to a degree typically only achievable using a double joint, at the same time making the limbs perfectly aligned. At this point, I was really happy with the design. So I decided to print my first ever Loftios character. The Underpaid Assistant! Now, being able to see the figure as an actual character shed a new light on the way it looked. And it didn't look as good as I thought. While I was pretty happy with it, something looked off to me. And I decided it was that the torso looked a little too small in proportion to the legs. So I printed another version where I stretched the color of the torso to the hip, and that looked worse. So after a lot of studying and redesigning, I came up with a design that looked much better. I flattened the hip, hollowed it out a little, and stretched the torso to fill that gap. Yeah, now this figure is virtually perfect! Except there were two issues that were causing a lot of problems that I was avoiding up until this point. And that's supports and printing orientation. Because these parts have some floating regions, I have to use supports which leave ugly marks on the print. Additionally, I learned that printing orientation has a lot to do with determining the strength of the part. In short, parts printed in this orientation resulted in a strong socket and a weak ball that constantly snaps off, and vice versa if printed in this orientation. While this figure looks exactly the same, I made one major change that completely solved these issues. And all I did was separate the ball from the joint. This way I can print both in their strongest orientation. Additionally, I no longer have to use supports for the limbs. And this made coloring the ball significantly easier when it came to multicolored joints. Now, there is actually two changes I made to the base frame. I increased the size of the hip joint because it needed to be stronger in order to hold up the entire upper half. And I did the same thing to the neck because I needed it to be stronger in order to hold the face. I used the same magnetic face design I used to create this figure, which was by far the best design yet. I also ended up adding magnets to the feet. I never tried this before because I assumed the magnets would not be strong enough to hold up the whole figure. But boy was I wrong! No sticky tack! I also finally got around to designing my own hands, ones that are completely original and look better on this figure. And for one final change, I slimmed down the torso a little bit to give it a more neutral look. And with that, the figure is finally complete. All that's left now is to reskin it. Guys, I cannot tell you how happy I am with this figure. It turned out better than I ever imagined. But this is not the end. With the base model finally complete, I can make all sorts of characters. Like Lofty!
You're about to get so lofty!
And the underpaid assistant. And that's only the beginning. I have a near infinite list of characters I want to turn into Loftio figures. It's just a matter of getting some people to check their freaking email! This figure is by far the easiest figure to animate with that I have ever used. Which was the original goal of the project. I really feel like this figure design has so much potential. And I have huge plans for it. Just you wait.
Does this mean we're taking over?
No.
Oh, come on! We're so much better than those cardboard pieces of craft. They fall apart when you
Yeah,
freaking look
hey,
at
I'm
them.
pretty sure we've already done this whole bit, okay? And it didn't end well for the last guy. So, like, let's not do that, okay?
Loftios forever!